Alrighty, that was Attack on Titan, Season 3, Episode 22. I guess starting off at the start of the episode, I had a big question, which was, where do they get the frame for this picture?
Yeah.
Of Grisha's family.
We know they have glass, because they have windows with glass.
And glass is.
So I guess they could have...
just built a small window frame for it?
Yeah, like, I guess they just took what they know about windows and then put a back on it and...
Or it was one of the things that Grisha left, like, under the books, even. Like, there's another faulty bottom under the books and just, like, a picture frame. So the picture is preserved properly.
But maybe just something easy to be invented over that course of a couple months after the photo is discovered.
Yeah.
And they want to keep it safe.
Maybe. And we just got the whole, I guess, intro scene of the world learning about
the
this.
World. The world learning about the world.
Yeah.
The world as they know it is not true.
Man, that's something to be told, right?
Would you, okay, like, here's a question. Would you believe this?
Here's a counter question. Can you equate this to being told aliens are real? And no. It's not
okay, no, because if the government came out and told me, yes, their aliens are real, I would be like, oh, yeah, duh, aliens are real. No.
So it's like, it'd be like the government, we'd think the government's like, oh, aliens are real. But in reality, they're like, oh, aliens are real.
And they wiped your memory.
But you are aliens that are underground and...
I would think that someone in the government was, like, playing a major prank and was probably going to get killed for it.
Yeah, well, the point I'm trying to get across is the fact that this isn't, like... It's a very detailed thing to be told. Even, like, I'd be, like, conspiracy head for sure, but it'd also be like, well, how long have they not been telling us something? Like, this is a lot of information to drop on us all at once.
It's also, like... It makes sense that there was a mixed bag of emotions and, like, responses and reactions to this. Like, even the journalist that published it was like, are you sure that this is real? Like, even after they've already published it, they're, like, double checking. And
they don't know what's going to happen.
Right. And, like, there are people who believe it right away. You know, that's accurate. There would be people who would immediately believe what the higher government body was telling them. There are also the people who would think it was a conspiracy. There would be the people that would laugh it off and think it was a joke.
Yeah.
You know, like, there are people that probably would be really pissed off about it. Like, how dare you joke about this? You know, like, other than just laughing it off.
Do you think there'd be any attempted deserters?
Attempted what?
Deserters? Like, oh, if that's true, I'm gonna go see for myself. And just, like, There's I don't see many Titans nowadays.
Oh,
like,
I believe that there's going to be a bunch of people who might just start, if they're allowed to just exit the walls, and they find out that most of the Titans are like, you know, dead. Hanji was right that most of the Titans were gone now. I'm sure there are going to be people who just start adventuring off on their own. You know, leave, maybe walk out, you know, explore a little. There's going to be nothing really to see except beautiful natural landscapes. But still, stuff they've never even imagined. Like the sand of the desert, the beach to the rocky cliffs surrounding the sea. And you know, if they venture that far, they'll see that port that's been made and the giant wall, and they'll see credibility in the story in the same way that Eren saw all of this. He didn't see it as the beauty it was. He saw it all as evidence.
Which I totally want to talk on later, because, like, that's a bag to unpack.
Yeah,
in itself.
not an enjoyable horseback ride for that boy, unlike everyone else.
So we're up to the scene where we're talking to the reporters, right? And this is just a little thing I wrote down, because the reporters poured some tea for Levi, and how Levi holds his cup is
did he pick it up like that?
He picks it up like this, and it's like the same way that he holds his sword. It's like a backwards, like, I don't know.
It's probably like habitual from when he was a kid in the underground.
It's amazing.
He was probably never taught how to hold it properly.
Yeah.
He doesn't have like any of the manners or like specific ways that he's supposed to eat or drink.
I wonder what that, like, we saw their initial reaction to the look and aesthetic of coffee, but we haven't seen their reaction to the taste of it. And if we ever get that day, I'd like to see it.
I mean, like, if they're anything like me, they'll just try to drink it so that because everyone else does, and then they'll eventually train themselves to like it and be obsessed with it and have to have it every single day.
I did like getting to see the reporters and the interaction with them, though. I mean, they definitely have a belief in the Scout Regiment and, the people in front of them, and it's nice. It's
like a sad comfort is what you feel from them.
Yeah.
They feel comforted that the government is finally telling the truth, and that they can now report the truth to the people, because that's what they want to be doing. And it's comforting that they have a governing body who is going to be perfectly honest with its constituents, but at the cost of the ignorance is bliss going out the window. Some people would prefer to stay, as we got the amazing line of the people being domesticated and ignorant under King Rhys.
Go on one more second. Hold on 1 second.
1 second. 2 hours later.
So one thing I was thinking during the scene, like coming out of it, was because it was one of the first reactions we got to a layman, a person,
just a common worker.
Yeah,
he called himself, I think, just a worker.
A real up close of how they handle and respond to the situation, and
they're getting a one-on-one.
Yeah,
they're getting a one-on-one conversation with the new leader of the Scout Regiment.
I also wanted to say Flagle could have been here. He didn't need to be, but he could have, and I'm upset that they didn't let me see him here.
Yeah, Hanji, you gotta meet with your main boy.
But one thing I was thinking throughout the scene and seeing their reaction is, do you think that the rest of the world sees the Eldians like this world within the walls has been seeing the Titans?
Yes, 100%. I think that's the imagery that has been painted and solidified with this episode. That is the intended, because you are now humanizing the enemy. Like, I think in terms of war, you always try to not humanize the enemy, because then it makes it harder to fight. And so the Marleyans definitely had to keep painting this picture so the people would agree to separating the Eldians and the Marleyans and treating the Eldians poorly. They had to keep furthering this history that the Eldians deserved this punishment and were devils and were evil. And just so their people wouldn't feel bad over this, wouldn't feel like they're doing something morally wrong, that they're now actually doing something morally righteous.
Yeah. To
get rid of these devils and or to treat these devils as lower class citizens. And now we're seeing this kind of the wool, that was covering the eyes of the Eldians to, these creatures and these things that we've hated. It's as if the Marleyans were told that the Eldians were actually them, Marleyans, and not really actually this separate people that once fought them and treated them horribly and could turn into Titans.
I think a potential route, not that the story's going to go that route, but a potential route would be a decent amount of people within the walls being like, okay, Marleyans, come take us with you. Put us in whatever civilization that Grisha was in, right? And we'll be oppressed under you because we don't want to have to deal with Titans, and we know that firsthand and understand.
Well, there would totally be people, I mean, as you can say, this is a world, and so there are going to be people with every single thought process possible. Yeah. And there would definitely be people who would see what their ancestors have done, similar to Grisha's father, as a sin.
Yeah.
That they needed to pay for. And or they would possibly see Marley. There could also be the separate is go to Marley because you're a traitor and you don't want to be underfoot during a war.
Yeah. Do you think that, it might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but do you think that living on the island that they're on and building up civilization there is one of the closest things to peace we can get?
I think the king,
Eldians,
I think the king picking this spot, a place completely surrounded by the sea. Yes, he was secluding his people, but I think he was also choosing a very lovely place for them to live.
I think that you're right, because if you are a just king and you have had reasons for what you're doing and you're trying to do what's best, then I think locking yourselves away and also protecting your civilization is the best way to go about it. Sure, these Eldians or people were born into this world, but that doesn't mean that they deserve to be taken out of this world. And the best you could do in that scenario is say, I'm in charge of these people, so I'm making sure that we're not going to provoke you and attack you by secluding ourselves in this island. But you're not allowed to come after us either because we have these titans within the walls.
Even though we know now that that was a bluff, that he wouldn't actually want to do that. I mean, we think about the flash that we got when Eren touched Historia this episode. I think it's very safe to say that the king would not be willing, even with being told that Marley was coming to attack them.
I don't think that he'd be... Correct, but we haven't seen Marley attack them to that degree, I don't think.
Well, we've seen Marley attack them. Grisha went to them before Reiner and Berthold and Annie showed up.
I know.
And they didn't do anything.
Well, I know that, and we're gonna get to that. I'm just saying that I think we know there are titans in the walls, so obviously it's not that much of a bluff.
Right. As soon as you crack the walls open, then a bunch of titans are going to walk out. I completely always forget about that.
Yeah.
Because it never was talked about after that. Was that season 1 into season 2 or season 2 into season 3?
Season 1 into season 2 because it was the end of season. It was right after the fight with Annie and Eren. Yeah. But what I said in the episode, randomly, because it was when we were leaving the walls that I thought of it. We had that what would you call it, wax papers drawn on scene of the titans that look like the colossal titan all marching. We don't...
the same height, too.
We've never seen that. We know that there are titans in the wall, and we know what the plan was stated as, the defense plan from the king, and all these titans are going to come out. That they could be the titans within the walls.
They would never directly... See, that's still passive, though. They're not directly fighting back. It's the enemy unleashing a trap that has been left open. It is not the people directly fighting.
Correct.
And the king directly telling his people to fight.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to you talking about what Paradis is and why the king chose it and why that's good. And I wanted to say that as you were talking... I started to think of it almost morbidly as a final resting place and almost like a grave site. When you're mourning something and you love something and this is your people, it's like you're kind of picking a place that's beautiful for them to die, like an animal when it goes off alone to die in solitude. And that's what it reminds me of. Is the king was passive. The king cared about the Eldians and wanted to protect them, but also didn't want them to keep on living their truth.
Yeah.
And being free. So it's almost it's a gravesite for the Eldians. It's like their final resting place, but it's not true anymore because obviously we are leaving.
So many episodes ago, we were trying to figure out what justification would somebody have to erase everybody's memories for the past 100 years and lock them within the walls. We came up with a few easy ones, like being selfish. But I think a prevailing thought was the idea of feeling like you need to make a decision that is better for everybody. And that in itself is selfish. I recognize that. But an answer to that is if people know that they have these powers, then there's bound to be one bad apple in 1,000. Then the best thing we can do is forget that they have these powers so that they can live their own lives in happiness in their own way.
This was kind of the best arrangement. Yeah. I mean, except that Marley now, if Marley hadn't wanted these resources...
It's without a doubt an arrangement that could be thought of as one person's best thought, right? Because in an ideal world, everybody's going to get along, but...
Oh gosh,
this is a solution. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's...
I think so Marley didn't treat the arrangement nicely. See, the king was like, I'm gonna take my people and we'll leave, so you don't see our devil faces anymore, basically. But Marley was just like, well, some of you stayed, so we're gonna send you back home, but in a way where you'll kill each other. And it's like, wow, okay, still majorly aggressive.
Yeah. I have a question.
Just let them leave and be gone.
I have a question that goes off that. Okay, so do you think that there are fossil fuels there.
What if that's a lie? What if that's a lie within the Marleys? Like, what if they're lying, like, someone high up is, like...
A reason to kill them out.
Yeah, what if this is just, like, a fake military operation that's truly just to wipe out humanity? Well, they did say they were there to wipe out humanity.
So, here's a question. It's either fake, or it's real and it's a coincidence, or it's real and the king of the Eldians, right, the people who landed us here, chose it because they knew that.
But why would they choose a place that the rest of the world would want to get at?
It wouldn't, you're right, it wouldn't justify. I'm just
especially if you're not going to use it yourself.
Yeah, I get you. Prevent other people from using it?
But, like, I'm also, like, if there really is that ripe kind of source there, yes, it's only been, like, a bit of time, but if we came from people that were so advanced to the point they were using these resources, how are we not just starting to understand what these resources are ourselves? Like, there's obvious underground activity in Paradis with the underground.
Yeah.
Do we know what these resources are? Have we seen them, but we don't know how to use them?
Yeah.
Do they exist? Are they real?
I don't know.
That's
I think
a current
it's a good question.
Yes.
Right? Going on into Hitch. Oh my god, my heart. My heart.
Because we freaking know that what Marlowe's last thoughts were.
You know what? I still think that you were so right on the money with the thought of Hitch being here for when Annie inevitably, maybe never, wakes up. Mm-hmm. I still think that the Hitch is going to be used in that situation, like that.
I mean, like, this has really been a raw deal for her. Like, she picked the cushy path, what she thought was the cushy path, but the two people she cared about on the cushy path are gone. That is not what she thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for her.
I do too.
I think that this scene, before, if I'm honest, I was gonna over exaggerate and say it at the end of the scene, but now I'm not over exaggerating at all when I say I love Flock or Floke. Please tell me how to pronounce his name correctly because I love him. I love Flock.
I like him too, except that he pissed me off.
But he
pissed me off because he's not been with us for multiple seasons where I'm like, love him even if he does something wrong. Like, Aaron can be a brat all he wants, and I'm still like, he's Aaron.
Well, I wrote down Flock is the new Jean.
Because Jean has gotten soft to them. Because Jean cares about Armin too. Of course he's going to get a little bit softer.
And I truthfully believe everything that Flock has said this episode.
Well, nothing he said was a lie.
It wasn't. And, like, I totally get it from his point of view too. Like, it's very real and it's a real argument. Hell, I could make that argument as a fan in a lot of ways if I was upset that Erwin died over Armin, you know? Like, I really, really loved his character this episode.
And he was, I think what was one of the best parts is everything he said and him saying it's how everyone feels. Yes, he was the only person there necessarily that was on the opposite side of who to choose other than Hanji.
Yeah.
But what he tells us here is that the reports that everyone else has read are accurate to what happened. And that can give you that same kind of comforting feeling that we got when we tell everyone the truth. The journalists prints it in the paper that we are not lying about how things are happening. We are telling everyone the truth, and they can do with that and feel with that whatever they want, whatever happens.
Yeah.
And he's completely right. So obviously, I think the main emotion I was feeling that was negative towards him in this interaction is Armin doesn't deserve this. Like, don't direct it at him. He started directing, like, the first thing out of his mouth was he was directing it towards Armin, and then he went towards everyone else. Yeah, like, he's the one that was, the whole reason Levi didn't pick Erwin was it was loaded, but some of it was how would Erwin feel if he was the one chosen in this situation. No one thought, because Eren, like, I think we said this when it happened, Eren and Mikasa were being selfish. They weren't thinking how Armin would feel being the one chosen. Armin would not have handled that well. If you had asked someone who didn't know, just that question, how would Armin feel if he got chosen in this scene? They'd probably be like, he probably would have said to pick Erwin.
I agree. I think he would.
And I'm like, so that was the only source of my, like, negativity in that scene is I know you're saying the truth, but it hurts because Armin doesn't deserve it to be directed toward him.
I obviously it wasn't like the most appropriate place to say any of this.
Also
right?
not an appropriate place. Yes.
It was legitimate in its own right, and I liked it. I liked it for his character. Like, I agree with you emotionally. I'm like, Armin doesn't deserve that, right?
Yeah.
He didn't make the decision. But for Flock's character, it's great. Like,
he said a line there too that I completely forgot when I was talking about how the report was honest.
Yeah.
He said he has the right to decide if it was worth dying for, and that's him talking about the fact that he was fed lies.
Yeah.
Him and Marlo were fed these hopeful speeches, these swaying words that pushed them into action, even though they were purely just fodder. And he's like, and so I think that's why
it was so
that
good.
married with him being like the report was like completely truth, and we know that to be fact, is just like pushing this idea of honesty being like the policy, you know,
Yeah.
now going forward.
I like it. Okay, I'm about to blow your mind mediocrely. Mediocre? I'm about to blow your mind in a mediocre way.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so on the screen right now.
Yeah, we see them kneeling in front of
Historia. Get rid of that name. Call her Ymir. Okay? Ymir Fritz.
Ymir Fritz.
And the 9 Eldian Empire are in front of her. Sasha, Jean, Levi, Connie, Aaron, Sasha, Mikasa, Flock, Armin. What?
You said Sasha's voice.
Sorry.
No, it is 9 though. It is 9.
I was getting carried away with myself.
I know, it is 9. Oh, okay. I think you said Sasha for Hanji because both of them have the same color hair and they both have a bandage on their head right now. Okay. So, yes, crazy thing you spotted there. That is such a good catch.
It's probably nothing. But
and they're all kneeling in front of her. No, I think it's purposeful.
Yeah, it's in front of her.
Is that why Flock was added? Is that why he was added as a character to, like, make sure there was 9?
Maybe. Or they felt like they did a disservice to us by making us watch his hairstyle, so they had to keep him.
They were like, "Let me
longer.
see,
yeah.
let me show you what a
could
little
be.
bit of time could do for this man and his haircut."
So I have a really I think is a really interesting question for you that I feel like I feel bad for not thinking about or asking before.
Okay.
Like episodes and episodes ago.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. But it's one of the reasons why I really liked Flock's speech. If Erwin was the one who survived and not Armin, would he have been satisfied with what was in the basement?
I don't think so. He didn't seem like the type of character who could ever truly be satisfied because all of this was at the cost of his dad's life. And his whole life has been searching for these answers. And I don't think anyone would feel completely... If your whole life has been empty other than this one goal, and you already lost a major, major thing to this goal, I don't know if it ever would have truly, like, filled you and made you feel complete.
Yeah.
It would have been nice, but I think there would have still been, like, an emptiness.
I think he would have been fulfilled in that moment. I think he would have never have been completely satisfied and would always keep looking.
Mm-hmm. Looking for... It seemed like what was created was more of just a hole in him that he was constantly trying to fill. And then once that's full with what he thought was going to fill it, it doesn't actually do it.
You know what's crazy that we saw? We saw Levi choose Armin, whose one of his most vocal purposes was to see the sea and how hype he was about that. And then at the episode, we got to see how hype Armin was just for Aaron to fucking be a buzzkill and ruin everyone's
You know what
happiness.
I wrote? Aaron equal wet blanket.
Like for
it's
Armin.
It's like a joke, obviously.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's true. Like this...
For Armin,
this was Armin's life.
For Armin and Levi's sake specifically. Because Levi's
them.
like, oh, I saved his life. He can finally live and bask in his dream.
On the staircase talking about his dream. And I'm giving this young, like, 15-year-old blonde boy his dream.
Aaron's just, like, sitting there like,
this isn't freedom, bitches.
You know, the manga's better.
Yeah. Okay. So that was Aaron Wet Blanket. So
Aaron, have you seen the dub yet? That was great though. And then how can we not? We got the interaction between Historia and Aaron, right?
I knew something was gonna happen. I was like, there's no way they're gonna touch after Eren saying right before it, can't tell anyone else.
How'd you feel?
I wrote down, my wife and children, he pleaded with them. We saw this, I mean, Rhys, like King Rhys painted this picture that Grisha just came down there and immediately threatened their lives and turned into a titan. In all of this, he was telling this to Historia and Eren when Eren was tied up as reason for Historia to want to do the same thing as he was doing, you know? And he fucking twisted the story. Like, Grisha went down there and pleaded with them, and he was like, this is gonna happen. I know. You and I know. Yes.
Yeah.
And Frida just, her eyes switched from her eyes to the Yuri kind of king eyes of purple.
I think that...
She's struggling, I think, with it, though.
I think that pleaded is a great way to put it, because, and how you just followed that up, because I think that's exactly what happened. I think that Frida heard him.
And it goes to the DNA.
It went into the DNA. She was struggling with it because obviously the DNA is fighting back.
With this brainwashing that we used to theorize about and now was kind of solidified for us by Kruger.
And then once he got more vague, Grisha, about it, before the people of the walls are eaten, then it kind of turns from Frida struggling to almost like a bliss.
Mm-hmm. Just like, I don't care about anything. This is the mission is to just be passive.
It was very odd, though. Like, looking back. So it was like, it goes from her being like finding peace or bliss, mm-hmm. right? But the frame change was very awkward, like intentionally.
There's a few things I want to say.
So it goes...
So after you talk about her face.
It goes from like... It goes to a different side of her face. Mm-hmm. Like it's a close-up at the opposite side of the face we were looking at showing her eyes that's completely changed. It looks like Grisha's then struggling. Mm-hmm. I wonder if there is any type of power that she holds over Grisha.
She could be trying to control him to bow down to her, but he is not just a person inside the walls in Eldian. He is someone with the attack titan.
Yeah. Who
can fight for freedom. Yeah. No other titan, I imagine, would have that same power to resist, other than the Ackermans, you know, to resist, other than the one titan that is created to push forward for the sake of freedom. And even though they were purely just fodder. And even though they were purely just fodder. And even though they were purely just fodder.
And even though they were purely just fodder.